Hello, my name is Dale. Well, hi. I'm right now in Florida. If you want to find anything about me, go to MySpace, Facebook, or Twitter, where I have accounts. This is just some basic information about long haul truck drivers and some of the little secrets that maybe a lot of you don't know about, and maybe a lot of other people don't know about. First of all, how do truck drivers get paid? Well, when I worked for JB Hunt, every morning we were required to call in. And then when I was alone, I was required to call in. And that's calling in back to the terminal. I have to tell them where I'm at, how things are going, things like that. On payday, when I call in, they would give me a number. I would take that number then, after they gave it to me and hung up, and give it to the cashier at a designated truck stop. If I'm at that truck stop or at the designated truck stop that morning, I'm not always, there on payday at a particular morning. And that number, they would tell them how much I'm to be paid, and they would pay me cash. And that's how I got my money. I think some truckers had like direct deposit, but I think they would also get some money from there, and the rest of it would go, would be deposited into their account because a lot of these truckers are married, don't have families, and so they have to, have direct deposit. So basically, I don't really know how they divide it, where they give the trucker so much, and the his trucker's family uh, puts it into their account. I don't know, but basically, you just get paid at the truck stop, and they do pay you in cash. If you've ever wondered how truck drivers fuel up, it's the same thing. They have to fuel up at designated truck stops. When a trucker goes out, he goes on a certain route. He has to stay on that route. He can only deviate from that route because of bad weather or highways closed down or something like that. He has to go on a certain route so that he can make it to a particular truck stop that's been designated, where he, the same type that where he can get fuel, where the company, pays for it, and where he gets paid at. And so that's how truckers fuel up. They can't just stop off at any truck stop and get fueled up and or get paid. One little trick that some trucking companies have, and I won't mention any here, is if you think that all truckers play by the rules as far as going across the scales, think again. There are trucking companies that will actually tell the truck driver how to go around the scale. And I can tell you firsthand of one not far from where I'm living at now that does that. So there are truckers, especially if you see them on some back road somewhere, that may be trying to get around a scale because they can't, they wouldn't be able to make it across one. But usually when that happens, that's because the truckers is not going a long distance. It's really almost next to impossible to go from halfway across the country without running into a scale or being able to get around it. But truckers are known to go take back roads and stuff to get around particular scales. Oh, another thing that some trucking companies do, particularly the one that I work for, is that when you're a trucker and let's say your brakes are bad or something goes wrong and it's the mechanic's fault at the terminal that worked on your brakes or worked on your truck, and you're stopped by a state trooper or you're stopped over by the scales and they fine you, it may come out of your pocket. If you ever become a trucker, I'd ask them all about who pays the fines. Oh, if you go to a trucking school like I did at Washington Homes, Votech in Chipley, Florida, remember this: just because you graduate doesn't mean you qualify to drive a truck. It's just more of a course to get you started. You still have a long ways to go as far as learning how to drive a truck. Uh, as I've told in other videos, as I've told people, make sure that when you go to a trucking school, go to a technical college, a VOTEC. Don't go to one of these fly-by-night trucking schools and pay $5,000, $6,000. There's no reason for that. You're not going to get hired, and you have to call a trucking company. And I call about three of them at least. Find out what companies or technical colleges that they will recognize drivers from, hire them out of, to be trained further. Okay. When you're out there on the road, the average time out on the road is about 6 weeks. That's not with every company, but with many. For every week that you're out, you get 1 day off. So if you're out 6 weeks and you come back to the terminal, you get 6 days off. And they'll keep you out there, though, as long as they can. Also, keep in mind that some trucking companies may offer summer programs where drivers can just drive for the summer, spring, summer, maybe in the fall. There are some truckers that just don't want to drive in the wintertime because of snow and ice. I just came from Wyoming, and so a really bad wreck up near Laramie, Wyoming. A trucker going just a little bit too fast, and he had a horrible accident there near Laramie last week during a snowstorm. And unfortunately, I don't know if he lived or not. I'd find it hard to believe he did. One little trick that truckers do sometimes is when they go up on a mountain, they'll turn their engines off and coast down. You're not supposed to do that. That's illegal. The reason why they do that sometimes is because when you drive a semi, you can't go more than 50 miles off course. You know, your miles is kept. They want to know how many miles you drive, and if you go more than 50 miles off, you know, more than 50 miles than what you're supposed to from one pickup to where you unload, they get suspicious. They want to know why, and it could even cost you your job. So they sometimes will turn the engine off, and that gives them a chance to maybe get a few extra miles on their, so that they can kind of, let's just say, fool around a little bit. Truckers usually go about 50 miles empty. That means when you deliver a load, you usually will go pick up another load that may not be more than 50 miles away. Oh, and if you have a trainer, this is for people, again, becoming truck drivers. That's what all this is really aimed at. People this is aimed at, really. You may have a hard time with your trainer. Some of these trainers are real jerks. If you have a hard time with your trainer, don't like them, you can call in and say, give me another trainer. Now they say you can only drive in designated routes. Oh, only 1 out of 100 truck drivers will make it past a year. Oh, one of the kind of immoral things that truckers like to do, and they get the instructors at the Washington Homes Votech had a habit of having those of us who were driving as students pass a car that had a beautiful woman in it, who's in the driver's seat usually, and they would want us to pass. They're sitting on, of course, the trainers in the passenger seat of the truck. They did so because they like to look down between the legs of the women that are driving those cars, if they have short skirts on and things like that. Some of our trainers were a real piece of work. What I discovered driving trucks is a lot of truck drivers do that. They'll pass a car if they see a beautiful woman just so they can look down at her on the passenger side or on the driver's side. Most of the trucks you're going to drive is about 53 foot. You know, when I first went truck driving, I thought I was just going to drive 40 feet, 40-foot semis, but this was back in the early 90s, but they decided they're going to come out. They were just coming out back then with the CDL and with the 53-footer. A lot of these highways and roads in these cities and towns are not equipped for trucks that size. That's what I hated about that, because, you know, the 40-footer fine, but a 53-footer, that's a real piece of work to have to, or thing to carry. And there are just certain streets in this country that are just not designed to handle a truck that size. If you have a CDL, you know it's pretty much good in almost all the states now. When I was driving, they were just coming out with the CDL, and they would just basically grandfather you in. Today, and it wasn't really good. The CDLs were not really good in all the states at the time. At least that's what they told me. They were, I think eventually they just became good. Just like I've been driving a bus for the last 10 years in Telluride, Colorado. And I went up to Wyoming this summer to drive a bus for a whitewater rafting company, and my Colorado CDL was just fine with them. So everything. But anyhow, I just wanted to give you some information, basic information about truck driving. It's not everything that you think it is. It's not a glorious profession. It's hard. It's really hard. That's why I went driving buses, because I had to go home every night. You know, and when you're a long haul truck driver, you're just living on the road and eating on the road, and it's a lonely life. Let me tell you something. It's very lonely. But remember, only 1 out of 100 will make it past a year. But it's still good to go to a truck driving school, try it out. But it will also help you get work, maybe doing driving Coca-Cola trucks and other trucks like that. There's other things you can drive. It helped me become a good bus driver. And so without that training, I might not have been able to drive a bus like I've been able to drive, or a coach or something like that. Anyhow, I just want to pass this information on and hope anyone that wants to become a trucker can find this information valuable. And I'm just passing some of this on to those who are just curious about certain things about truck drivers. Anyway, thank you for your time, and goodbye.